So, part two. So, my mom had surgery. I decided that eventually that I was just going to get better. I mean, I can't control that in my body, but I just took a lot of emergency, took a lot of extra vitamins. I ate a lot of soup. I slept a lot. And in 2 days, I was able to get to the hospital. I was careful to wear gloves every time I touched anything. I was careful to wear a mask so that if I coughed, I was coughing into the mask. It wasn't going towards my mom. I used hand sanitizer like every second I got. I made sure that other people were touching her cups or her tissues or whatever to get something to her. And for the first couple of days anyway. And if not, then I would grab a tissue and use that tissue to hold the cup or whatever, right? So I was very careful to make sure she didn't get sick from me. I could say that I was successful in that, so that's a small, I guess, winning battle in the game of the entire war, right? I went to go see my mom. Everybody was there. My grandparents visited every other day, and everybody was there. She had a nice room. My stepdad visited every once in a while. And she, was there. They had to have drains in her. And so she was there with those drains in her, which were uncomfortable, if not sometimes painful. I know, because the drains were taking out all of the extra liquids that could potentially infect her. So any additional feces or fecal matter that might be floating in there, any kind of, want to say white blood cells and things like that for the follow-up. When your body's healing, there's going to be fluids that are excreted that come from all of that kind of repair work that's happening in your body. And a lot of that was happening during the few weeks that she was there. And that was good because it would go from yellowish pink to a pink, which is, yellowish pink is there's a lot of things happening in there. There's a lot of fighting and possibly bacteria is coming out and all that stuff. And then pink is more of healthy because it's more of what they call sanguous fluid, right, which is blood and stuff. And then it would turn to kind of clear, and when it was clear, that meant that there was no more blood, there was no more trauma, and then there was just kind of some drainage of some white blood cells, maybe trying to help fight and clean the area. So that's what was happening over the week with the draining tubes. Unfortunately, something I didn't know that was a shock to me was that when they did the surgery, they had to actually remove a part of her intestines. Well, actually, what they didn't do was they didn't remove a part of her intestines. What they ended up doing was that they rerouted her colon so that she had a stoma. And a stoma is basically putting... It's, for lack of a better term, they're putting an asshole in your stomach, in your abdomen. So they basically take your colon, reroute it to your abdomen, cut a hole in your abdomen, and then sew that colon to that hole. So you basically have a butthole on your abdomen, and then they will attach a bag there, and that bag will be where you poop now. So you're not pooping out of your anus anymore. It's not coming out of your rectum. So, I knew that she was recovering, and I didn't want to touch anything, and I wasn't trying to get anywhere near her because I was sick, but I was working from the hospital for those first couple of days. And then they had a nurse come in, and she was like, "Hi, I'm here to change her bag." And I was like, I was thinking her catheter, because she had a catheter also, so she could urinate without having to get up. And then they showed me the bag. The ileostomy bag is what it was. It's very similar to a colostomy bag, but not the same, I guess. And so they call it an ileostomy bag. And essentially they have to change it every, 3 to 5 days. 3 is better. You could go as far as 5, but basically you just want to change it, make sure it's clean, make sure the wound is kept clean. She had like a little plastic insert in the wound that was called a bridge that kind of held it to the surface of her abdomen, because of course the colon doesn't want to be poking out through the abdomen. That's not natural. So you have to have that little plastic piece to kind of hold it there for the first few days until, of course, it's kind of healed enough so that it won't rip or tear trying to get itself back into its correct position in the intestinal area. So, sorry, there's probably a lot of TMI. Definitely gonna put a trigger warning, content warning up for this. So she had that, and then I just looked and I was like, okay, so you have this bag now, and this means you're never gonna go to the bathroom the same way again in your life. So just thinking about that, I'm thinking about taking care of my mom like that, because I know that my stepdad wouldn't, it was hard. I know that she was embarrassed by it. I know that she was ashamed by it. She's like, this is the rest of my life. And she said that to me a couple of times, and in a way that made me feel like she was, she felt like, I don't think that she felt that she actually would have taken the hospice option, but I feel like maybe she regretted going through with the surgery just a tiny bit. She was a fighter. She wanted to live more than anything. And so she would take the ileostomy bag over death for sure. But I think she was embarrassed by it, and she was a fully grown adult, and she couldn't go to the bathroom by herself anymore. And she wasn't like a geriatric adult. She was like 52. So I think that she didn't appreciate that. And, it was that time when I started, seeing her completely naked. I mean, basically completely naked. I was helping to get her up and down to go to the bathroom. I was changing her pads in the bed. So if she did like go to the bathroom by accident in the bed, or if she didn't really have to go to the bathroom because she had a catheter, right? But like they did take it out for a little bit. And then it was leaking when they put it back in. So that was really why they had the pads there. But she also had she had a drain down by her crotch area too, and that was leaking a little bit. So all of those things, like, I was changing that. I was wiping her backside. I was cleaning her, giving her, a bath, because she couldn't really go and take a shower or anything. She couldn't get up for a long time. I was helping her through her physical therapy, because they started her on physical therapy after a couple of, I want to say a couple of weeks, but I know it's not right. Probably like a week or so. And, all in all, that time that we were with her, it was really scary. I remember seeing her for the first time, and I just started crying because, it's really hard to see somebody you love with a bunch of like tubes and bags and pumps and whatever attached to them. And, you basically look like a giant machine with a human body attached to it. And, I just started crying, and my brother Mike was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's hard to see her like this." Because I already knew the cancer was inside her. I already knew that she was basically a death sentence waiting to happen. I already knew that she wasn't gonna last. But, man, did it really suck. Seeing her on all that shit. Because, I would say my mom was a very independent person, despite the fact that she couldn't leave, her house and leave her situation, which I would consider, toxic. I think that she was a very independent person. She did what she wanted to do. She was very strong-headed in a lot of ways, and to see her reliant on machines and bags and pumps and drips. And people. It was really hard for her to rely on us, you know. When she had her surgery, she texted my brother because, you know, I think that she thought that she probably thought I was too much. But I think that she also thought that, you know, I was sick and I was trying to stay away from her, so she thought that I'd probably want to, and I mean, to be honest, I did want to for a long time so that I wouldn't get her sick, because I was really adamant about not taking care of her while I was sick for her own benefits, you know, not for me. And that hurt too, because what's the lesser of two evils? Not taking care of somebody who needs probably some care and some self-advocacy, or making sure they don't get sick because you're sick and they could die from that. I mean, like, really, I think the latter was a lesser of two evils, and I don't regret that choice, although, of course, I do reflect on it often. I know that she texted my brother because he would be there for her when nobody else was. Because I couldn't be, my stepdad just chose not to be. I'm so glad that he went. I'm so glad she was able to rely on him. That was very brave of her. And she probably thought it was very shameful to have to rely on somebody else, but I know I get that from her because I'm stubborn about that too. I don't rely on other people. I don't want to have to rely on other people. So when I ask somebody to do something for me, or if I ask to borrow money, it's like a huge deal for me because I can't do it. I can't, like, trust that I'm gonna be okay mentally about that decision later. Like, I will regret it, or I will feel guilt or something. And for my mom to ask my brother to come to be with her so she wasn't scared and alone and so she could have help is amazing. So she was very brave and courageous and humble in that moment, and I'm so proud that she did that. So those weeks that she was there in the hospital, she was in her own room, and then they moved her down into the basement, out of ICU into ICU 2, because they had an overflow, and then they moved her back up to her own room again. But while she was down in the basement, man, she fucking hated that. Like, it was dark, it was secluded, it was, you know, basically you're in one giant room with curtains in between you and the next person, and the next person, and the next person. And everybody's loud, and you don't have any privacy, you don't have any quiet, you don't have any, you know, when they turn the lights on, you don't have any darkness anymore to sleep. And I know she hated that. She couldn't look out a window. She didn't feel connected to people or to things. They did allow her to go outside once, and that was like a miracle. My brother sent me pictures. I was so happy that she got to go outside and see the sun and touch the sun and have it be on her skin and just be able to get fresh air and be away from other people. That was amazing. She started having some physical therapy while she was there. They told her that she had to get up to walk around to strengthen her abdomen muscles so that she could, you know, then go home, get the tubes out, go home, and be able to get out of bed herself, which was the biggest hurdle, of course. Having a surgery like that, your abdomen muscles are going to be weak. And she was already weakened also from, you know, of course, being cut open in several places and having all that fecal matter taken out of her. So it was a struggle. You know, she was on she was on antibiotics so that she wouldn't get an infection. They had her on basically liquid Lasix, which are pills that reduce your water intake or your water retention. But then because they're flushing you're flushing your system so that you pee out all that water, you also have to be on electrolytes. So she was on potassium, magnesium, and sodium. Plus, she couldn't eat on her own, so then she was taking a TPN, which is a basically a feeding tube, but it wasn't going down her throat. It was through her central line, I believe. Yeah, through her central line, so that she could eat. Um, Plus, they had her on, they recognized that she was depressed, and they recognized that she had high anxiety, especially because of having to swallow pills. She had a fear, I would say an irrational fear, because she didn't even have tonsils anymore. She got those taken out when she was really little. So swallowing without tonsils is like, putting a hot dog in a cavern. Like, I feel like it would have been really easy for her, but she had this irrational fear that she was going to choke on the pills, somehow, throw them up because they would get stuck or something. So she was only taking very small pills when they gave her pills, but they did give her Ativan for anxiety. They gave her Lyprexa for, she was having like, well, it's an antipsychotic, but she was having like crazy amounts of like anxiety for the drowning or the choking aspect of taking pills. And then they were giving her morphine for pain. They gave her, aside from morphine, what else were they giving her? They tried a couple of different kinds of pain medications, but morphine was the one that worked the best. They tried giving it to her in pills. So 4 small, tiny pills. When that didn't work out because she couldn't swallow them or it upset her stomach, then they put it through her IV. And then, of course, when you're on morphine, you get like more anxiety or you have nightmares sometimes. So then they were giving more antidepressants, antipsychotics, and anti-nausea medications. I mean, she was just on like everything and anything that you could think of. They had her, because her TPN had high amounts of glucose, and they had to give her insulin. So she had a lot of shit going on, and I was keeping track of all of it, like, right here, because if anybody, like, any new nurse came in and was like, what is she on, and when was the last time she ate, and when was the last thing that she did, I had to, like, remember all of that. And so they had her on TPN for a little while, and then she started eating very well after she had her liquid diet for a few days. So then they were like, oh, she's eating well, so we'll take the TPN out. But then she stopped eating, and then they had to put it back in. And I think really, all in all, like, I want to blame it for everything, but I know it's not the case. But I feel like she would have gotten out of there sooner if she didn't have to rely on that TPN, because they weren't going to let her go if she couldn't keep her nutrition up. And so she stayed there for a very long time. And we spent my birthday there. And my birthday was really the last day that she was fully, like, aware and healthy, at least to my knowledge. So they let her go because they did the cultural, bacterial, fungal, parasite cultures on her, and they all came back negative, and she was fine. That was the day before her release. The next day, they authorized her release. They said they did find some E. coli in there, but that's pretty normal if you're, exposed to potential foods that may have that, and there's typically a select amount in anybody's abdomen at any given time, so he wasn't really worried about it. So they released her to go to the rehab center, and that was my birthday miracle. I didn't want anything for my birthday. I'm a fully grown-ass adult. I don't want anything for my birthday anymore. The only thing that I ever wanted for my birthday was for my mom to be proud of me, for my mom to love me, to have a family that cared about me. And I think I got that. I just feel like sometimes I needed it verbalized. Sometimes I needed people to say that to me. And my birthday miracle was that she got to go into rehab. that day. So I stayed with her all night after everybody else went home. They released her at, well, they